Alright guys, time to grab here back again today. Haven't enjoyed your day so far, and a few days ago Hydra was confirmed onto the New York subliners alongside Clayster, Mac and Zuma. Not yet confirmed who the fifth will be, not even yet confirmed really who the starting four is going to be. We'll look at that in a couple of minutes time, but of course Hydra should have been a major target for the Paris Legion, and I believe was a major target for the Paris Legion throughout the off-season. Didn't happen though, Clayster and co managed to snap him up. That leaves Paris in an interesting situation. Who are they going to pick up? Who have they been looking into? Wuskin, Scraps, you know, Eggs, Parasite, who has been on the radar? And well, Wuskin doing an interesting tweet saying that he's kind of frustrated that Paris never seemed to get back to him when he reached out to them. Intrigued to hear your thoughts on this in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. If you guys didn't see this Envoy's Fearless Ninja Defuse who put out yesterday, new series called Behind the Sights. A really well done analytical breakdown, I believe, from Round 11 Stats. Pretty much I just provided the voiceover and the platform for the content. But yeah, if you guys have any feedback on, well, video series you would like to see, any things you would like to see improved or changed, or recommendations for things that we can, well, include in this series, because the idea is to look back at some famous Call of Duty moments through a more analytical lens and see like exactly how that moment played out. In addition to the 3 minutes in Call of Duty history series, which well, another episode of that should be coming Monday, I believe, which is tomorrow as of I'm recording this video. So let's jump into this Paris Legion stuff. Clayster says, I've long been a fan of giving up and coming talent a shot to make it in the big leagues. Definitely some things we're going to have to work on, but I'm confident Hydra is going to be a beast. Hope the scene starts opening more doors more often. We get this from Clayster as well. That makes 4 out of 5 roster spots filled. Excited to work with Paco, that's Hydra's first name, and see where we can take his career. So being pretty clear, that's 4 out of 5 roster spots filled. Definitely Clayster, Mac and Zuma are going to be starters. The rumoured fifth is trying to be John, but we really don't know what's going on there, right? If it was going to be John, why hasn't he already been signed? Yeah, big question marks going on behind the scenes, whether he's even going to be allowed to play again this year. We don't really know what's going on, but certainly Hydra to the New York subline is an interesting move, and it's a bit of an L for the Paris Legion to have to take on this one. And well, as Cronut Celia Lintel says, if John does sign there, that's at the subliners. Not completely sure in his situation, could be chalked for all I know. I guess it would depend on who is a better fit for the team, but I imagine Hydra certainly at some point in the season will get his opportunity to sign. And as Defrag says, the most talented French player since Gatarga, how do Paris not do what it takes to get him? Absolutely mind-blowing stuff. And Crone says because they are lost on the 10th of August, that just being yesterday. If you guys haven't seen much of this guy's stats throughout the Modern Warfare season, obviously a lot of these statistics are pretty much out of control. Then again, the sample size is relatively small from just the Challenger side, and well, of course, the Challengers don't pose the same level of competition than the professional scene do, but a lot of the Challengers players are, of course, very good indeed, and some of the teams, especially in the European amateur region, were very solid last season, and I think Clayster said at one point that Singularity would probably be a top 6 team in the game if they were actually in the league, because they came over to the US for a while to scrim and eventually teach some of the North American teams how to play Search and Destroy, as to my understanding. So definitely looks pretty cool. Then again though, from the Paris Legion side, you haven't been able to get Hydra. The rumoured roster ages ago was like Hydra, Pred, Zed and Dens. Like they were thinking about exactly moving with that one. Then they were like, okay, maybe we need a French guy. Do we get Whalers? Do we get Brezzy? Or do we just completely not bother going down that route and just get some other guys onto the Paris team, which might give us a better opportunity of actually competing for championships, which is maybe what they want at the end of the day. And well, Riskin says this as well. I really want to shake some people up and make them understand that they are stupid. Maybe say that, like, you know, I wish the Paris Legion would pick me up, because Risk was a great player throughout the Black Ops 4 season as well. So Wuskin tweeted this out a couple of days ago. I'm just sat on the toilet having a dump and thought about how Paris never got back to me, and just let that sink in a minute. People must be getting told some mad stuff or something. So Wuskin, we had, of course, this drama with Assault a while ago, where Assault was kind of saying that Wuskin wasn't playing for the win and was always chalking scrims to go and play Warzone and wasn't actually like super committed to practice and all this kind of stuff, right? So we had that a while ago, and Wuskin was saying like this rumor is going to cost my career, in a sense, that people believing this and teams believing this is going to mean that they don't pick me up when well, I'm deserving of a spot. So interesting really that Paris haven't got back to him yet. He doesn't seem particularly happy with the situation. And then we get a reply, of course, from none other than Christopher Parasite Duarte. No one gets back to me, it could be worse. No one has got back to me, bro, literally. So really interesting, right? Because we're now like over a month into Rostermania. A lot of teams have already confirmed. A lot of teams are very likely going to confirm in the coming weeks, I imagine. But Paris Legion are very much in a question mark situation where we really don't know any of the 4 players that are going to be on their team. We know some players that were being considered, but clearly Wuskin is being considered, Parasite's being considered. Maybe they aren't getting back to them just because like they're considering their options and they have no intention really of signing these players relatively soon. At the end of the day, if you get a guy like Wuskin or whoever on the books, even if it is for the minimum salary of $50,900, you effectively have to pay them for October, for November, for December. Maybe it's Paris Legion's thought process says like, look, let's just wait till January, then we sign the players just before the season begins, then we don't have to pay them for these next 3 months. So maybe we won't get an announcement for Paris for a very long time. But maybe they still really don't know what they're doing, right? And you would imagine that they would at least send some reply to the likes of Wuskin, and well, I suppose it's quite interesting that he's kept these tweets up on the timeline. Then again, though, a few hours later, he tweets this out, it's on, maybe saying that he did get a reply based on his tweet, who really knows, right? And I think on stream the last couple of days, he's been slightly more optimistic in terms of light at the end of the tunnel and stuff like this. So if Paris Legion are considering Wuskin, is he going to be a duo with Scraps, right? Is Scraps and Wuskin going to go onto this team? I imagine they do want to team together. They weren't on, well, they're obviously not on the London team anymore. They got removed off that team going into the 4v4 environment. That's an interesting change in its own right, given that these two are probably the biggest personalities and biggest brands on the London organisation. Paris may be trying to steal that away from them, and that could be a honestly, pretty good storyline going into next season. Wuskin and Scraps looking to get revenge over on their other European brethren, I suppose. But if Wuskin and Scraps are on the team, who else do you consider getting in the squad? Because that pretty much is solidified your main AR and then like your flex role, right? Scraps could run a full-time SMG, but is probably better placed in a flex role. So then you're looking at, okay, do we get like 2 fast aggressive SMG players? Of course, Hydra would have been a nice one to get, but that's no longer on the table, right? So there's many other options, but there's a lot of players which aren't getting a slot right now, which definitely would like to slot in somewhere, I imagine, this season and not have to play through the absolute gauntlet that is going to be the challenger side. I mean, the likes of Slack, the likes of Classic, some of the guys on Toronto that aren't getting a spot this season. I mean, there's so many options out there for Paris. It would be, well, at least they should be able to put together a team which is somewhat competitive, and maybe you can get top 8, top 6 on a good day, right? Because, well, there's so many great players out there right now, you'd think they could at least put together a competitive squad. Now, the other tack that they could potentially go is just go down the route of actually building their brand to some degree, and one of the routes you might go with that is to get a guy like Patrice, right? And, well, Eggs did this whole banter about, like, Patrice a few days ago, and the identity, as he mentions here. Aside from my Patrice identity on Twitter troll, I have not spoken or reached out to the Legion, so your info has got also been saved to Crone. Yeah, you talking about you and Center pitching yourselves to the Paris Legion when he says, like, Crone, you don't have the plug anymore or whatever. So, this is what Crone said at the time. What's the word on Scraps and Wuskin? Chalked unless Paris give them a shot. So pretty much Wuskin and Scraps, their only chance is if Paris do decide to get them, and if they do, they're somewhat restricted into how they build out the rest of their roster. The other alternative could be, do you get an Eggs, do you get a Parasite, and just build like a, not like a fun team, but a team that people are actually going to support and be interested in watching, and probably they would be to some degree with Wuskin and Scraps anyway, and it does create some good storylines, but you know, all of a sudden you've then got the thinking like, do we have any French players on this team? Is that going to affect our brand's personality to some degree? They did have Brizzy last season, but he was never a starter, and maybe French fans got used to the fact that their organisation was being represented by players that weren't from France, but you know, I suppose as a guy from the UK, if all of a sudden London overhauls their roster and picks up a load of American players, I'd be kind of frustrated and probably wouldn't really be supporting that team anymore, quite frankly. So not exactly sure how it goes. I certainly imagine that if a Madrid team comes into effect for 2021 and Heretics own it or Giants own it or whatever, they definitely will want to have some Spanish players, because that's just kind of how the scene works over there. And maybe Paris are thinking like, let's just be as competitive as we possibly can be, and maybe that means picking up some of the best players in the world, frankly, or at least like in the top 20 range. Wuskin certainly should have been up there. Scraps probably on the borderline last season. He was once again a pretty solid player. If you can get the right pieces around these guys, they can compete for championships or at least be up there in the top 4 range. So intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section about what you guys would do if you were the general manager for this team. Then of course, if you are going to get Wuskin and Scraps, you have to build out the rest of the squad in terms of your SMG line. And well, these are some of the guys that Drew McCourt over at the Paris Legion has been following over the last few days. Pred has been in consideration for a while. He was initially rumoured to this starting lineup, well, a month or so ago, really. One of the shining stars from the Australian region, pro player for Renegades, as you can see, definitely a very talented guy. So him to Paris is certainly an option. He's also been following the likes of Asim. I mean, Asim I honestly do think deserves a spot. I wonder exactly where he's going to go, because entry SMG players like Asim are few and far between. And well, if Florida decide to keep Havoc on their team and just have their starting roster from last season minus Frosty, Asim to the Paris Legion alongside Pred and then Scraps and Wuskin, that could be a pretty nice team. And Asim actually has played with Scraps in the past on the FaZe clan team in Black Ops 4. I just realised that actually could be a reasonable option. Parasite has also been followed very recently as well, so very interesting to see how this one develops. As I say, I believe it's going to be a long time away where they actually do decide to lock some things in. I believe they're also in discussions with Afro, if you guys know that very talented player on the Team War squad last season in the European region. But there's certainly been some discussions over the last few days or so about Afro actually having a team sorted for the challenger side, so it doesn't necessarily look like he's ready to be on the cusp of getting into the professional league. But if Paris do decide to reach out in a couple of months' time and say, hey, we've decided to go in your direction, direction, because, I mean, the amount of players that are probably reaching out to Paris right now, the switch from 5v5 to 4v4 with no expansion has left so many players in a, well, a precarious spot, and I imagine pretty much everyone wants to play for the Paris Legion and get on this team, even if it does mean that you're only paying for 50 grand a year. And, well, if Wuskin and Scraps get there, to be honest, it would be a pretty good success and would create some interesting storylines as well, but who would you fill out the rest of the roster with? Thank you for watching the video and for making it this far. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm know you enjoy this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well and help the Call of Duty community grow. Thank you for watching as always, and I will see you next time.